So I'm guessing the real question is affordable housing ever going to exist again? Well, these people are going to argue why it will and why it won't. Let's go ahead and jump right into it.
So, can we stop telling people that they're living above their means when they start complaining about the cost of things? Because when I got this apartment right here, clearly you can see it's a starter apartment. It's not anything luxury. Clearly not anything luxury. Not luxury at all. Look at the blinds. It's not luxury. Look at the closet. It's not luxury. You know what I paid? What does that say? Oh, $945 a month for a one bedroom. Y'all can see 2019. Lease was ending in 2020. 2020. You want to know what that apartment goes for now? I don't know what it goes for now. Oh, almost $2,000. Oh, why don't we just follow the advice of a boomer? Why don't we just purchase a home? Even the small rinky-dink homes like this are going for $323,000. The gag is, as early as 2014, this home sold for $48,000. $48,000. And if you look in 2012, it sold for $39,000. They have the audacity to be charging $323,000. I'm not even going to talk about gas prices. I'm not even going to talk about gas prices. I didn't even talk about groceries. These are literally the essentials. Just living. The living expenses are astronomical. But for some reason, y'all keep telling people that they're just living above their means. I remind you, this apartment is almost $2,000 and it's not a luxury apartment. Y'all want to hop into the comment section talking about, oh, well, I found an apartment that was $700 a month. Yeah, and as soon as you click on the reviews, you see roach infestation, rodent infestation, guns, shooting, weed, all of these things. People should not be subjected to that if they don't want to be subjected to that. If having a safe and clean place is living above your means, then hell yeah, I'm going to live above my means.
If you're buying a manufactured home and you think that base price is your final price, we need to talk. We're going to talk about something that your dealer probably didn't. I'm going to walk you through every cost of your house outside the base price. That way you don't get snapped up and slapped into next week like we almost did. Think of the base price as like the appetizer. What I'm about to give you is the full meal, dessert, and the tip. All right, the first line item is the appraisal. Before any piece of dirt moves, before anything's ordered, before anything really starts happening at all, you get the appraisal. Ours was around $800. And this is what I like to call the thumb up your ass phase. You're going to wait 2 to 3 weeks, sitting, waiting, you know. Make sure you budget for this because it's not optional and it's not in any brochure I've ever read. Next line item, title work. Also not free, also not fast, and it's definitely not what your dealer's leading with. I genuinely think some dealers just assume that we know the process, and that wasn't the case for us, so it's unacceptable at this point. Next is site prep. Clearing your land, grading it, making it actually ready to receive your home. Now this number varies wildly depending on your land, but I need you to budget for it because it will absolutely humble you. Now we had a skid steer track come off in the heat. I promise you the land does not care about your timeline. It needs what it needs and you're there to pay for it. Then the delivery, then the installation, then the marriage of the two sections if you're getting a double wide. Each one has a separate cost, each one has a separate crew, and it has its own timeline that may or may not align with yours. Just know it's coming, and I say that with love. I just don't want you to be shocked when that invoice hits. Then you have utility hookups. Water, electric, septic, sewer, depending on your situation. Each one's a separate contractor, each one's a separate cost. Each one is absolutely necessary, absolutely not included in your base price. This is the one that gets people, and I absolutely understand it because on paper, it should be included, right? That's how we feel. But it's not, never has been, and now you know. And your permits. Your county wants to be involved in everything you're doing, and they want you to pay for the privilege. These are rezoning, building permits, driveway permits, and depending on your specific situation, there may be multiple, and they all cost, say it with me, time and money. We went through the zoning process before any of this even started, and that alone took 3 months. So buckle up and have a little bit of patience because you're gonna need it if you're rezoning. So add permits to your budget and a little dash of patience to go along with it. Here's the most important thing I'm gonna say the entire video. Whatever number you just added up in your head, add 20%. This is construction. Construction does not care about your timeline, your feelings, or your wallet. And we all know what Mama says about wishing one hand and shit in the other. Perfect example for this entire process. Budget for the unexpected because it's coming. None of this is to scare anybody away who's buying a manufactured home. This is so you walk into this process with your eyes wide open and to make sure that your budget reflects reality, okay? Because the people that get blindsided by these costs are people that walk away frustrated and bitter. And I refuse to let that be you. No, you deserve to build your dream with all the information, not find out halfway through that you didn't budget for half of it. Yikes. save this, share it with somebody that's starting the process, and come back because we have so much more to cover.
When people say stuff like you should buy a house while you're young so that you don't have to worry about struggling to pay rent in your like retirement years, or as a senior citizen, I want people to just stop for a second and really think about what you're saying. The fact that you are telling people, hey, you should buy something because having a safe place to live is not a fundamental right in this country is really where the problem is. It is not that, people aren't buying houses or they're not being smart with their money or whatever the case may be. Every single human being should have access to safe and affordable housing, point blank, period. I don't care if you young, if you old, if you're employed, if you're unemployed, it does not matter. Having housing, safe housing, is a basic human right, and it should be treated as such. The commodification of housing not only pisses me off, but it also puts people in a position where if they do not have the capital to acquire property, which we see in the US is becoming increasingly more challenging, then they are subjected to the fluctuations of rent prices, which also continue to skyrocket, and we don't have any sort of rent control. And then we blame these individuals for not having anywhere to go when the economy does not make it possible for a lot of people to buy housing. A lot of these social service programs do not use a housing first model. So if you don't meet all of these requirements, then you cannot qualify for housing assistance. And I just don't understand why we continuously blame individuals for these clearly structural problems. And another thing, nobody should be able to have more than 2 houses, point blank, period. Housing is not a commodity and it should not be treated as such.
Just in case you're wondering, there isn't nationwide rent control, so she does have a valid point. Now, does rental stabilization exist in some cities like San Francisco? Yes, but not everywhere, man. The market varies too much. And, if they were to actually kind of put in effect some sort of rental control or rent control or cap, or it might actually do some justice. There were some studies that said that, hey, due to some rental controls, tenants stayed in those buildings longer. But the problem is, because of wages not adjusting quick enough to rent, people have to move and leave, so therefore it becomes unsteady tenants. The rental rates are just different. You get one person right across the street that wants to rent out to such said project by $200 more. You don't know what their need is, and since it's $200 more, therefore you're doing your $200 more to keep up. It's just nonsense, but something has to change.
America is never going to have affordable housing again, and I'm going to tell you why. A lot of people in America want and need real estate prices to stay high, and let's start with the previous generation. A lot of people purchased their property for $50,000, and now they've seen it rise in value to $600,000 or $700,000, and that's a lot of money. And if we started developing it like we did in the 1960s, we would see real estate prices go down, and thus their retirement would be in jeopardy. Local governments don't want this to happen either, because lower property values means lower property taxes, and lower property taxes means less revenue for them to spend. A country with ubiquitous affordable housing wouldn't need a mortgage market, and thus the banks would lose one of their major revenue sources if we ever started to have affordable housing in America. If we had affordable housing and American families could go back to being single income households, corporate America would lose half of their workers, wages would have to go up, and the IRS would lose a good portion of their tax base. So what are these vested interests doing to keep us from building affordable housing, and how much of an impact is it actually having on us? It's not that it's particularly hard to build affordable housing. Here's a study from the 1960s from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics on how many work hours it took to build this typical single-family house with 1,400 square feet, 3 bedrooms, 2 baths. Using construction methods from the last century, it would take a little over 1,000 work hours to complete the average 3-bedroom, 2-bath, single-family house in the 1960s. If we were to assume modern labor costs of $60,000 per year, you would have a total labor cost of $30,000 to complete a 1960s style house if you were to do so today. Yet the average price for a home in America today is $430,000, so something's not adding up. But what about the material costs? Well, the materials that we use to build houses today are cheaper and less robust than what we used in the 1960s. So maybe you're thinking that the reason houses are more expensive today is that the land costs more and we're building bigger houses than we did in the past. And you're absolutely right. But why is that? It is so hard to get approval for a buildable lot in America that when we do get these approvals, we have to put the biggest, most expensive houses on there to make the development make sense. Imagine if the government put restrictions on the number of cars that could be produced every single year. You would see car manufacturers put an emphasis on the most expensive, most profitable models and not worry about entry-level cars. And this is exactly what's happened in the American real estate market. It's why for $250,000, you can purchase an entire estate in our West African developments, but you can't even purchase a condo in most areas of America for that same $250,000. And this is going to be a big problem for business going forward because we have an entire generation that has to put up to 40% of their income into paying for a mortgage or paying for rent, which means that our consumer base is going to have a lot less money going forward, and that's not good for anyone. But I want to know what you guys think. Do you think that America was right to start restricting property development because of overdevelopment concerns? Or should we open things up and allow for us to build houses like we did in the 1960s? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts. And as always, if this video provided value to you, give me a like and a follow. That really helps out my channel. And I'll see you guys on the next video.
Now, what I'm about to say may piss a lot of landlords off, but I don't really care at all. But I'm gonna read to y'all the qualifications that this person wants for this house. And it ain't an amazing ass house. We're not talking about anything super expensive. The rent, like I said, is $16.95, $40 application fee per adult. They want you to make 3.5 times the rent. Standard for whatever reason is 3 times the rent. When majority of Americans don't even make 3 times a $1,600 a month rent. I don't know where people just get up and be like, oh yeah, we're just gonna make this a national standard that people have to make 3 times the rent amount. Majority of people can afford 2 times the rent on a specific basic home like this. But this person is going even further. They don't want you to have 3 times the rent. They want you to have 3.5 times the rent. They want the last 2 years of your W-2s, the last 3 months of your check stub, driver's license or ID, social security card. They want you to make 2 months worth of rent as your security deposit before you even move in, and you have to have a credit score of at least a 670. I'm trying to tell you off the bat, that disqualifies so many people from being able to be in a home that is decent. Let's add that up, why don't we? Off the rip, you have to pay first month's rent, $16.95. You have to pay $40 application fee per adult, and let's just say the standard adult is 2 adults, right? You have to pay, if you have a pet, which majority of people in Houston do have pets, dogs, it's a $250 non-refundable fee per pet. So let's just say you have a pet. We're going to add that up. And then you have to make 2 months of the rent to equal the amount of the security deposit. So that's $16.95 times 2. All right. And on top of that, we're not even talking about your utilities and all the things that you have set up. They want you to have rental insurance before you move in. Standard rental insurance is probably about $25 a month. Let's just say that. Before you can even move into this house, sitting in a savings account somewhere or just idle money, you already got to come off of this amount of money. I don't know at what point we stop being human, though. Even as an investor and a landlord, at what point did we stop being human and we say money trumps everything, including people? I don't get it.
You know what's crazy is because, man, a lot of the times when you're just trying to get an apartment, just imagine trying to get an apartment, maybe even a trailer at this point, man. You have to make 3.5 times to 3 times your income. You know how challenging that is for a lot of people that's just trying to get a 1-bedroom apartment? Make that make sense.
The median monthly housing costs in the U.S. hit a record $3,104 in January. Housing payments have almost doubled over just the last 5 years. Average mortgage principal and interest payments reached $2,237 a month, with property taxes of $416 a month. Additionally, property and mortgage insurance costs were $198. All the while, the median home sales price spiked $31,300 to $446,000 in January, the second highest on record. Affordability It's starting to probably feel maybe like what the Great Depression was like 100 years ago. Think about it just for a moment. We hear the stories from our parents and our grandparents who are sharing what those eras were like, and it's terrifying when you think that inflation is what ruined the value of the dollar, meant that people couldn't afford anything, and it's starting to look like it right now, and the charts don't lie. That's exactly what they're pointing towards, which is why it's so important that you don't stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and bury it, because the tiger's gonna come out and bite you in the ass. You gotta get up off your ass and you gotta do something about it. And it's either going to be making more money, being smarter with your money, stop doing stupid things like 401ks and IRAs. You can't save yourself out of the situation. Investing is the only way, so you've got to find the most intelligent, smartest ways to break free from single-digit returns like 6% from the IRA or 8% from the S&P, because if you do the math, it's not going to get you where you need to be by the age of 65. This is the core reason why I invest in real estate, because I can beat the market 27-1 on a bad day, 75-1 on a normal day. I just built a brand new 60-second retirement calculator that shows you how quickly you could hit $10,000 a month in passive income. It's going to show you exactly what it actually takes to replace your 9-to-5 job even faster. And it's the same framework that I used to retire at the age of 26 with $12,500 a month in passive income. It takes less than a minute, and the numbers might completely change how you look at your financial future. Click the link in my profile or below this video, run your numbers, get your game plan now.
$22 an hour back in 2009 was great money, especially seeing as how the house we bought a damn near 3,000 square foot home, and it was only $130,000, and it was on like almost a whole acre lot. This was our first house that we bought in 2009. My wife even made that little thing right there at an art class with some of her friends. I think our mortgage was like $686. This was our starter home. Yeah, like, this is what we're gonna build off of, this, that, and the third. People can't even imagine being able to afford a home like this in 2025. Could you imagine being able, brand new marriage, making $22 an hour and being able to go and buy a home like this off of $22 an hour? That's what you were able to do back in 2009. That's what, and my wife worked, but she was going to school also. So this was single income.
We will never have affordable housing in this country again because people have built their wealth on real estate.
Affordable housing and home ownership in general seems like a fantasy because I've been doing the math all morning and I think it's actually cheaper long-term to rent now than it is to own a home in a lot of cases. I think that's why a lot of people are finding out the hard way that being a landlord for just like a few houses on the side isn't really a get-rich-quick scheme anymore as a side hustle. So let's break it down. First of all, there's tons of hidden fees that come with home ownership, such as house repairs. A lot of numbers thrown around the internet, so I decided to round down to $4,000 a year. On top of that, your utilities every month are vastly more expensive than apartments. You also have property taxes that vary a ton. So first, let's calculate the cost of living in an apartment for 30 years, because that's the timeline of the average mortgage one would take out on a home. In Minneapolis, the average 2-bedroom is going to run you about $1,900 a month, which seemed on par with what I know. And we'll add on utilities for about $120 a month. And on top of that, my insurance is only $10 a month, but we'll say $15. And then lastly, we'll say your parking runs you about $110. And we take this number, multiply it by 12 months in the year. That's how much you pay yearly, and then we will multiply that by 30 years. So assuming your rent doesn't increase dramatically, which is always an ever-present possibility, you're going to end up with a little bit under $1 million. Now let's figure out the cost of living in a 2-bedroom home here in Minnesota. As you can see, the prices varied a lot. For a home that's not going to run you too many renovations, I figured about $550,000 after all of the hidden fees is going to be about the cost. The average down payment for Minnesota runs at 16%. So in the mortgage calculator, we got $88,000 down for 30 years at the standard current interest rate. Gives us our monthly mortgage payments. You can see it's already considerably higher. So again, multiply this by 12 months in the year, and then we multiply this by 30 years, and that alone without anything else is already a large number. Also, I don't understand how this number is so high. I did this calculation a dozen times. I feel like there's something I have to be doing wrong here. Don't forget that original down payment you put on, which brings us to this. And then we have utilities every month, which I rounded down to $400, even though they said it would come out to about $500, but that felt high to me. And then on top of this, across the internet, it seemed a consensus that maintenance averaged about like 2,000 a year to like 10,000. So we'll just say 4,000 every year. Hopefully your home isn't completely falling apart. And that would bring us to this big round number, which is considerably higher than what we got for living in an apartment. And we're not locked into one location for this. We can move around whenever we want. But hey, some people like that and some people don't. Don't worry, I also did the side calculations on my own if you manage to find a reliable $300,000 house. And it is still much higher than apartment living. All of this doesn't even calculate the fact that like home ownership is really difficult if you're not someone who's like super handy, which a lot of us aren't. When you live in an apartment, there's someone who can just come and fix everything for you. You don't need to worry about it, and you can just pack up and leave and come back whenever you want. The next time your family's hounding you about how you need to buy a house right now, you can just show them this.
Now, the only thing I can think of is this new generation that's coming up is going to really, really struggle when it comes to affordable housing. That's why you see a lot more young adults that's 20, 21 still living at home with their parents. They cannot afford to go do anything else. And it's becoming a normalized thing. You know, when we were maybe 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, you would say, hey, look, you're 18, let's go ahead and get out. 20 years ago, all right? 20 years ago, maybe you were able to do that, but you cannot do that now anymore. Like you have to sit there and you got to go get a co-tenant, a co-signer, you got to get a roommate to afford the bills, all these sort of things. And not only that, it's not just rent that you need help with. You really need help with the utilities now because they are up. Insurance rates, food prices. So yes, the challenge is trying to live on your own. It's almost impossible for this new generation. And they're, trying to just start off in the work market and your wages aren't up there really. It's tough. I can get it. So let me know what you think right now. Will we ever get back to some sort of form of affordable housing? Yes or no? Tell me in the comments and I'll chat with you there. Don't forget to hit the like button.